After returning from a week-long overseas trip, I was taken aback by a call from my mother-in-law, Jessica, with palpable excitement in her voice. She told me that she had found $32,000. I was immediately confused, given that as a freelancer, I maintain only modest emergency savings and don't typically keep large sums of cash on hand. Plus, my banking card was safely in my possession, and no one should have been able to withdraw such a hefty amount without my knowledge. Jessica explained that she had taken the money from a drawer in our sideboard, assuming we were financially well off. While I appreciated her intentions, I was baffled as to why she thought she had permission to take such a large sum without asking. This left me with one pressing question: where had the $32,000 come from? The mystery lingered for a month, until Kevin, presumably her husband, came home. Although the situation was beginning to resolve, there were still unresolved questions. Over that month, Jessica had called me no less than 136 times. At first, I ignored them, not understanding why she was calling so frequently, but when I finally answered, she accused me of something I couldn't quite grasp. She seemed upset, but her reasons were unclear, and the accusatory tone only added to my confusion. As I tried to piece things together, the situation grew more complicated. I soon realized that Jessica wasn't just talking to me, she was also speaking to Lisa, a 33-year-old freelance jewelry designer, who had been sharing her ambitions and struggles. Lisa, who had always dreamed of having children, was finding it hard to balance her career with her desire to start a family. Meanwhile, her husband Kevin, also 33, had shifted gears in his career, leaving a steady job to become her business partner as Lisa's career grew. When Lisa and Kevin first married, they relied heavily on Kevin's income, as Lisa was just starting out, but by the time Lisa reached her 30s, her business had taken off, and she needed help managing the demands of her growing career. Kevin left his stable job to help her with the business, which flourished with his support, securing contracts with renowned international brands. Yet despite their success, they faced ongoing challenges, particularly with Kevin's mother, Jessica. Living alone in the family home, Jessica had a distorted view of their lifestyle, imagining that they lived in luxury, constantly attending extravagant parties and dinners with corporate elites. While these events were part of Lisa's professional responsibilities as a jewelry designer, Jessica believed they were just lavish social indulgences. This misconception bled into her financial expectations as well. She often asked Lisa and Kevin for money to host her own social gatherings, assuming their perceived wealth could easily cover her desires. Despite being financially capable of supporting Jessica, Lisa and Kevin's lifestyle wasn't as glamorous as Jessica imagined. The events they attended were necessary for their business image, and maintaining this image required significant expenses, like dressing elegantly and dining at upscale restaurants. But Jessica frequently expressed envy toward their lifestyle, often with a sarcastic undertone, and she didn't shy away from making requests for financial help. While Lisa consistently declined these requests, Kevin, seeing his mother's constant demands, occasionally gave in, hoping to maintain peace and avoid disruptions to their work. Unfortunately, this only seemed to fuel Jessica's expectations, leading to even more frequent and unreasonable demands. A recent visit from Jessica added more tension to the situation. She insisted that Kevin buy her an extravagant new dress for an upcoming social event, even though we suggested a more affordable option, like a simple three-piece suit. But Jessica was insistent on the lavish dress, claiming that it was essential for the occasion's grandeur. She even demanded a matching handbag, expecting us to cover that expense as well. To handle her financial demands more efficiently, Kevin set up a credit card in Jessica's name, instructing her to use it for her expenses. Initially, this seemed like a reasonable solution. Jessica's spending got out of hand, and Kevin had to step in to rein her in. He set a new rule: she would need to consult him before making any significant purchases. The intention was to give her some independence while keeping her spending in check, finding a balance between her desires and our need to manage finances responsibly. Despite the new restriction, Jessica's habits didn't change much. She went ahead and bought an expensive ring without consulting us first, and the costs quickly began to pile up, putting a strain on our finances. Kevin, who was handling the bills, soon realized the situation had become unsustainable. Frustrated by Jessica's disregard for the financial consequences, he imposed a spending cap on her credit card. When Jessica found out she couldn't pay for her latest shopping spree because of the new limit, she was furious. She stormed into our house, questioning the fairness of the restriction. She argued that her enjoyment of luxury was no different from our professional need to dress up for glamorous events. We tried to explain that the events we attended, product launches and parties, were essential to our work, often hosted in lavish settings, but Jessica only saw it as indulgence on our part, not understanding the professional obligations that came with these appearances. After the spending cap was introduced, Jessica's complaints quieted down a bit, though she still voiced her discontent to Kevin from time to time. Life settled into a more manageable routine, and as the year came to a close, an exciting opportunity presented itself. A foreign brand offered us the chance to expand internationally, and this proposal thrilled me. It felt like a step toward joining the ranks of top-tier designers. Kevin, who was overseeing the business side of things, also recognized the importance of the opportunity and was eager to seize it. However, despite the excitement, Kevin and I had concerns about how Jessica would react, given her history of excessive spending. When we shared the news of the potential overseas expansion, her response was exactly what we expected. Jessica accused us of planning to live luxuriously abroad under the guise of work, fearing that we were preparing to relocate permanently. To ease her anxiety, I reassured her that we would return once our business affairs were settled overseas, but her unease didn't subside. She seemed more worried about being left behind. The constant debates drained both Kevin and me. We knew we couldn't take her with us, but we still wanted to offer some consolation. Tired of the ongoing arguments, Kevin suggested a compromise. He would send her on a week-long vacation. Jessica, half pleased and half skeptical, accepted the offer, and Kevin agreed to cover her flight and hotel costs, hoping it would bring some peace. Unfortunately, the tranquility was short-lived. A few days later, while Kevin was focused on the overseas arrangements, Jessica showed up at our house with yet another request. She wanted extra money for shopping during her trip abroad. When I asked about the credit card Kevin had given her, she admitted he had taken it back, fearing she might misuse it due to fluctuating currency rates. I told Jessica that I couldn't authorize any financial assistance without Kevin's consent, and the conversation ended with her storming out in frustration. As the new year arrived, Jessica set off on her 10-day trip. When she returned, she shared a surprising revelation that would completely change our understanding of the situation. Jessica called me, excited about her trip, but soon admitted that she had overspent on souvenirs. Growing increasingly frustrated, I confronted her about the money she claimed I had set aside for her, a sum I had no memory of earmarking. The conversation quickly took a sharp turn. I knew I had savings in my account set aside for business emergencies, but there was no way Jessica could have accessed it without my approval. That's when she casually told me she had found $332,000 in a drawer in the sideboard of our house. I was stunned. Keeping such a large sum of cash at home was unthinkable for us. I told Jessica that if she had indeed taken money without permission, it was theft, no matter that she was family. I emphasized the seriousness of the situation, especially if Kevin had planned to use that money for a business deal. During her trip, there had been no disruptions to our business transactions, which made her claim even more suspicious. Jessica, seemingly unfazed, admitted to using the money, as if simply telling me would make it all okay. I pointed out that taking money without permission was not only unethical, but also illegal. She defended herself by saying that, since we lived so extravagantly, she didn't see any harm in sharing a bit of that lifestyle, suggesting it was like doing a favor for a parent. Her rationale only deepened my concerns about her understanding of boundaries and responsibility. I found her reasoning completely inappropriate. She had taken money without asking, yet showed no remorse or recognition of the seriousness of her actions. She promised that I would talk to Kevin when he returned, confident that he, as her son, would understand. She even nonchalantly remarked that $32,000 wasn't much to him. Though I agreed to pass her message along, I was deeply unsettled by the entire ordeal and her complete lack of awareness. Ending the call, she casually thanked me and asked me to send her regards to Kevin. When Kevin returned that night, still confused about the $32,000 in cash, I confronted him. He explained that he had withdrawn the money 12 days prior for an urgent payment that required cash. I was surprised he had kept such a large sum in a drawer, given the security risks involved. Kevin seemed troubled as he asked if I knew anything about the cash. That was when I realized the money was indeed his, but we still didn't understand why it was kept in our house or what its intended purpose was. I questioned Kevin further, trying to piece together the mystery. I was perplexed as to why Kevin had left such a large sum of money at home, especially since we usually conducted transactions through bank transfers. Kevin then revealed that, after limiting Jessica's credit card, she had secretly borrowed money from other sources. consumer finance cards, and credit cards she had opened without his knowledge. When Kevin discovered this, it added a whole new layer of complexity to our already strained relationship with her. To address her escalating debts, Kevin took decisive action. He collected all of Jessica's credit cards and withdrew cash to pay off her obligations. Despite giving her the money, Kevin was aware of the risk that she might squander it carelessly. This decision shed some light on the situation, though it still didn't explain Jessica's motives. I was inclined to handle the debt repayment directly through bank transfers, thinking this would be more straightforward and traceable. However, Kevin preferred to avoid leaving too many records in our bank accounts to maintain trust with our business partners and keep our bookkeeping clean. So, he chose to withdraw the money and manage the payments personally. Supporting Jessica's overseas trip, though, was more of a parting gesture, acknowledging that once we moved abroad, we wouldn't be as available to her as before. 3. As time passed, Jessica began calling me frequently, up to 136 times a day. Kevin advised me not to engage with her excessive attempts to contact us, but her persistence made me uneasy. One day, I finally picked up, and her voice, tinged with desperation, broke through. She apologized for the constant calls, revealing that she was facing daily demands for payment and that Kevin wasn't responding to her. She turned to me as her last resort for help. I was shocked that Kevin would take such a drastic measure against his own mother, especially if he had set aside money to clear her debts. Had he used it as intended, perhaps Jessica wouldn't be overwhelmed by the calls and letters from collection agencies. Now, she was being bombarded with notices, unable to resolve her mounting financial problems. The situation was starting to look like something out of a drama series. When Jessica called again, pleading for help, claiming it was a son's duty to assist his mother, I felt the weight of her distress. I mentioned her plea to Kevin when he came home, but his response was unexpectedly harsh. He coldly dismissed her, pointing out that she had squandered her chances to resolve things herself. Despite my desire to help, I decided to block Jessica's number. She was Kevin's mother, and if he had chosen to distance himself, I had little choice but to respect that. As the day of our overseas move grew closer, I found myself surrounded by boxes in our cluttered home, a profound sense of helplessness settling over me regarding Jessica's situation. It soon became clear that things had escalated far beyond what I had imagined. Jessica had to sell her house to settle her debts, a drastic measure that highlighted the severity of her financial troubles. In addition to the $32,000 Kevin had set aside to help her, she had concealed even more debt. The total amount was so vast that even after selling her property, she couldn't fully pay off her obligations. The revelation that her house had to be sold was a painful reminder of just how deep Jessica's troubles ran. Despite all of this, a significant balance remained outstanding, emphasizing the harsh realities of financial mismanagement and its devastating consequences for personal and family life. Kevin, though saddened, realized there was little we could do to prevent the loss of his childhood home. The emotional toll of losing such a personal place, due to his mother's actions, was undoubtedly heavy. Now, Jessica was living in a modest apartment, struggling to manage her remaining debts with a part-time job. Finding work at her age was challenging, and while I felt some sympathy for her, the reality was that her financial mismanagement had led to this situation. It was a stark reminder that, even later in life, taking responsibility for one's actions is crucial. Meanwhile, our business was thriving overseas, opening doors to opportunities one hadn't anticipated. Back home, we began receiving inquiries from various brands, and I found myself navigating offers from unexpected places. This new development significantly broadened our professional horizons. While this success was gratifying, it came with its challenges. My schedule was so packed that finding time to rest was difficult, and Kevin, equally busy with his own responsibilities, was no less stretched. Amid this bustling new life, the idea of starting a family felt like a distant dream. As I gazed out at the foreign cityscape from my window, I reflected on the stark contrast between our thriving new environment and the struggles we had left behind. It underscored the complexities of life, where professional success often coexists with personal challenges and difficult family decisions.